Hey guys, it's me, and welcome to another episode of What If Deku was the Elemental Dragon Slayer Part 5. Hope you guys liked the video, and let's get on to the episode. I'm skipping the Class President episode because it was the same as in the anime. In the end, the Class President was Ida, and the Vice President was Momo. Class 1A was in the classroom with Aizawa explaining what type of training they would be doing, which was rescue training. And there would be 3 teachers, Aizawa, All Might, and 13. The class got changed into either their hero costumes or the UA sports uniform. Deku was in his hero outfit since it wasn't badly destroyed, besides his shirt. He was also wearing the UA sports sports uniform as top. When they got to where Aizawa explained them to meet, and yet they had to get onto a bus. When Deku realized this, his skin went from his normal skin color to a pale white when he realized he would need to ride a bus. He then went pale because he has an extreme. If you didn't know, he went pale because he had an extreme case of motion sickness. When Izuku realized he couldn't escape his fate, he stepped on the bus last. The bus began to move, causing Izuku to collapse on the floor of the bus with his face being green. On the bus to the USJ, the class began to talk about quirks, while Deku wasn't because he was trying not to lose his lunch and his breakfast. The bus went on travelling for what felt like hours for Deku, but was really 20 minutes. Aizawa announced that they had arrived, but before Aizawa could finish, Deku was off the bus and kissing the ground, saying he would never go in one of them death traps again. The class walked off the bus to see the Pro Hero 13. To which I checked, gave a speech about welcoming the heroes in training and about how quirks can kill someone as well as save someone. In the center of the USJ, a cloud of purple smoke appeared and exploded outwards, before a hand grabbed the center of the gateway and tore it open. It revealed a blue-haired male wearing all black with hands on his body. Then a horde of villains then walked out of the portal and into the USJ. He then began to say something that none of the heroes could hear because they were too far away. The warp villain then teleported towards the heroes and introduced himself as Kurogiri. And they are the League of Villains, and their job is to kill All Might, while his job is to scatter them and torture them to death. Kurogiri then used his quirk to send some of the Class 1A into random parts of the USJ. Deku was transferred to the cave zone. Before you ask, I don't know if that's a real zone for the USJ, but since some people get stuck in caves, this seems appropriate. As Deku hit the ground, it caused a crater to be formed. Before he hit the ground, though, he activated his Iron Dragon Slayer scales to absorb most of the damage from the fall. When he landed, he noticed he was surrounded by villains. Deku then looked around the area and saw that he was underground. And since he didn't know how much earth was above him, or anything that was above him, he couldn't use his dragon rulers, since that would take the whole place down on him and the villains as well. As Deku wasn't paying attention to them, the villains then attacked Deku, which he dodged without thinking, and punched a villain, sending the villain into the wall, before a rock falls on his head, knocking the villain out. Deku then turns his hands into steel beams, before hitting the villains, knocking them all out except one, who just smirks. Deku then asks the leftover villain how he plans to kill All Might. The villain then replies how he wasn't going to answer Deku and he'll have to beat the answers out of him. Deku then charged forward before he takes a step and he can't move. Deku then begins to sink in the ground slowly before shadows pull him down into the ground, blocking his mouth and nose to stop his flow of oxygen. Deku then has an idea. What's stopping him from just biting the shadows and to eat it? Which he does, but this causes a change to occur. Deku's Iron Dragon scales grew darker and his eyes went completely white and his hair went black and grew longer, before Deku began to sink into the ground and appear behind the villain with his hand changed into a steel beam and hitting the villain, knocking him out. Deku then travels through the cave looking for the exit when he sees a light. He then goes towards the light and sees a bird-like creature charging at Bakugo, but Deku speeds up before throwing Bakugo back and blocking the Nomu's attack before being sent back. Bakugo then looks around to see this new form of Deku before pointing out it to Todoroki and All Might, who arrived recently. Deku then threw a right punch at the Nomu before he can register what happened. He noticed that nothing happened to the Nomu before trying it again and again and again before he thought of something. Deku then changed his arms into steel beams before lightly punching him, and every punch he throws, the force of the blow increases. Deku then manages to pick up the Nomu and throws it into the air above him before he takes a deep breath and his cheeks expand, looking like a squirrel, before he unleashes a white yellowy beam with black rings around it, which ends up destroying the Nomu and the roof of the USJ. Deku then looks towards Shigaraki before his body erupts in pain, sending him to the floor, yelling for a solid minute before he passes out. Seconds before he hits the ground, he's caught by All Might. Shigaraki then charged All Might, but he throws a punch at him before a portal appears, sending All Might's punch away from Shigaraki. Shigaraki, however, his hand was getting close to All Might before Shigaraki was shot in the hand. Then both of his legs before he looked to the entrance of the USJ, and he sees heroes. Shigaraki then tells Kurogiri to get them out of here. Kurogiri then opens a portal out of there and back to the League of Villains base. The heroes all get the villains locked up and captured, and put them all in police cars, or ones that were knocked out anyway. The medics tell Class 1A that besides 13 and Aizawa, that no one was harmed besides 13 and Aizawa. Ochako then asks, what about Deku? The medic then said that the boy must have been exhausted and he collapsed. Later we see Deku in the recovery girl's office until he begins to wake up, and he sees All Might on another bed in his small Might form, and he's talking to a detective. Deku decides to ignore this and goes back to sleep. 2 days later, in the class of 1A, we see Aizawa talking about the sports festival being in 2 weeks. Okay guys, I'm going to end this video here of What If Deku Was in Elemental Dragon Slayer episode 5. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and tell me what you think of it. Anyway, I'll see you lot next time. Bye!